Like always, just wait a minute or two, wait for people to show up. But I think we're going to have some. I'm hoping we have a good turnout today. This is going to be the start of some really interesting stuff. I think this is going to be probably some of the most interesting streams I've done in a while. So let's hope we get a good turnout. Let's hope we get more and more because we're going to be actually building stuff here, which would be great. Let's see here. All right. Yeah. All right. So, like I said, wait a minute or two. Wait for the first couple of visitors to trickle in, and then we'll get started. I've got things set up. Let's see here. I've got that set up right. Yep. Okay. That's good. I think we'll go ahead and close all the tabs here. Bam, like that. Okay, I'd say, oh, good. Hey, how's it going? All right. Good. All right, we're getting a couple of people. I've got things pretty much set up. If you notice a slight wobble with the camera, I'm at my standing desk. Can't tell I'm actually standing right now. So it does wobble a little bit whenever I put my hands on it and take them off. Other than that, yeah, we'll wait just a couple of more seconds. There, we hit about 2 minutes. I'd say we can go ahead and get started. Yeah, let's hope we get some joins quickly here so that people don't miss too much. But today is going to be it's called TypeScript. It has begun. So yes, we're going to begin TypeScript. And since TypeScript, it's really JavaScript, but we'll talk about that in a minute because I was asked to explain what is TypeScript, why TypeScript. I actually had a live stream much earlier on when I first started live streaming that I called Why TypeScript, that explained why I use TypeScript, why I think others should use TypeScript, why I don't understand the hate that TypeScript gets because of some of the things I think the hate is misplaced because of different reasons. We'll discuss all that here pretty much right now. So basically, we're going to be learning JavaScript through TypeScript. And we're going to be doing that by building a React component. And for those of you who have not seen the poll, it looks like Image Gallery won by a lot. Let's see here. I had modal dialogue. Which is honestly, I didn't want to skew the results. So that was the one I was hoping for because I actually was looking to build a modal dialogue. But I was going to let the community choose. It was modal dialogue, tab view. Hang on, let me go back to the post here real quick and I can find it. Modal dialogue, tab view. There it is. Wizard. That's the other one. Wizard and Image Gallery. So I was kind of hoping for modal dialogue, but it got the least number of votes. And no, I did not vote in my own poll. So it got the least number of votes. I only got one vote, unfortunately. So, but the funny thing is, I was kind of putting it out there because the one thing I didn't want to do was something too complex. And Image Gallery was thrown in as the last one, as kind of just to fill out a fourth, just to make it look a little bit more official. I didn't actually expect it to get voted because it actually is going to be of those four. I would say Image Gallery is probably going to be the most complex. There'll be, the way I'm thinking about it right now, there'll be three components. It'll be, the main component, and then there'll be the component for the display, and then the component for the actual images there, the little thumbnails, the thumbnail images and all that kind of stuff. So the goal of this is we are going to be building this together. I may do some minor changes here and there and set some things up, but I'll always discuss if I do stuff like that before the stream, I'll always discuss what I've done. So we'll pretty much go through the whole process together. We will, the setup I have is it's React with TypeScript, and I use Storybook for testing. So anytime you've ever seen me post an example of my component working, it's been running in Storybook. So those of you who have not used Storybook before, now would be a really good time to go out and find out what they do. It's a really great application, especially if you're writing components. It's great for component testing. You can set up all kinds of things. It gives you a lot of really really good features to pretty much do what you want to with the application and get all these things set up the way you want to. You can set up, you can have very simple setups where it literally just loads the component, and then you can have setups where you can put a lot of other kind of markup around it. You'll see some examples because we're going to obviously have to be building some of these examples. I can't remember the image gallery stuff that I've got. I've got an image application, and that's probably what we're going to use to load images, because it's I'll have to go find it in my email. I haven't gone there in a while, but when we get to the point of needing to load images, there's an API you can use to access images and things like that. And I've built collections before. I might go and build a nice little collection of images, and that'll be our gallery of images that we'll use for the image gallery and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get to see some interesting stuff along the way, basically. And hopefully in the process, we will learn a lot about TypeScript and about JavaScript, about functions, about types, about variables, about how things work in JavaScript, how things work in TypeScript. Let's go down the path really quick now of TypeScript and why TypeScript. So I don't like TypeScript because it's Microsoft. I'm not really a big Microsoft fan, but I do think TypeScript is one of the things that Microsoft did very well. The person who created TypeScript is also the same person who did C#. So any of you who are C# fans, TypeScript came from the same basic person who came up with the idea, who created the C# language. So TypeScript in itself, it's debatable if it's a language. It's really, to me, it is a language because it has a compiler, so therefore I would say it's a language, but it really is just a language that kind of adds some to say it's simple is not really right, but basically adds design time typings to JavaScript. To say that JavaScript doesn't have types is incorrect. It doesn't have design time types. It has runtime types. That's what the type of operator in JavaScript is for. So you can actually determine what the type of a particular variable is, because you do not know at design time with JavaScript what a variable type is. So you have to use type of. Why do we use TypeScript? Why is it so important? Basically, the reason that I use TypeScript, and the reason why I don't understand why it gets so much hate, is because TypeScript adds design time typing. Now, yes, especially for your own types, and we will see this as we go along, you have to create your own types. So, but that's really not a problem, because one of the biggest problems I had before TypeScript came around, when you're writing JavaScript applications, is having to validate an object, especially around objects, an object or a variable that it was of a particular type. Because what you had to do a lot of times in JavaScript function and in JavaScript objects is when something got passed in, especially if you're going to perform operations on that thing, and if it was possible that in the future someone might pass something incorrect to it, if this is something that's like part of a lower framework that's going to get reused a lot, you had to put some kind of type checking around it. So what would happen is we would build these independent functions that would go through for any particular thing, and we'd have to say, okay, well, here's this function that's going to check the types for this thing and this thing and this thing, and it would go through and it would check to make sure that these things were valid and that they had particular types and that they had all this kind of stuff. And the purpose, it was a lot of work that we had to do, a lot of work inside of JavaScript that we had to do to make sure that the properties passed in, that an object that was passed in had the particular properties, and that the properties were of the right types. We did that a lot. We did a lot of validation checking inside of applications. And this is where TypeScript comes in and really makes this nice, because if you build the types, if you're passing an object to a function and you want to make sure that the object that you are passing to that function is of that type, you build a type, and then when you actually declare the parameter in that type, you can put the type on it. And what TypeScript will do is if someone else within that same application, or someone else who's using TypeScript, who is using your application, tries to pass something that is invalid, it will throw an error for you. You don't have to do all of that error checking. It takes all that error checking and it puts it into TypeScript. That's a huge thing. That's probably the biggest reason to use TypeScript is it does all of that work for you. It took all of that work away. I used to have to do that all the time in all of my applications, and when TypeScript came out, I was just like, oh, because you could actually sit there and it's a lot easier to define a type with a couple properties and put their types in there. And if they can have multiple types, TypeScript has union types that allow you to say it can be of this type or this type or this type or this type. So you can actually sit there and you can actually define the different types that are allowable and all that kind of stuff. That's why TypeScript is really, in my opinion, so great. And that's why I use it in almost every one of my applications now, because it's one of those things that it makes things so much easier. Now, that being said, TypeScript does not work in a runtime sense. TypeScript is a design time sense. So what does that mean? There are times where you're writing applications where you're pulling data from like an API or something like that. Now you can write a type for the data coming in and those kinds of things. And what'll happen is TypeScript will take that data and the type that it puts that data into will have that particular type. The problem is if the API changes, TypeScript isn't going to check that the API has changed. It doesn't actually validate the data coming in live. It just makes the assumption. It tells the programmer this is what the type should be. So you can get things where you define a type and they don't, and the data doesn't match the structure. TypeScript can't do anything about that because that's at runtime. It only works in design time, and it only helps when the caller of the actual function or whatever that you've defined your type for is working in design time. So if you have a function that someone else is now trying to use in the same application to call, and they call with invalid data, it will give them an error saying, no, you're missing this property, and it'll actually tell you the property. It'll break out the property. You know, the object you passed is missing this property, or if they put in a valid type, the property it'll tell you to have a property mismatch. Oh, well, you defined this property, but the type is supposed to be this, and you defined type as this. So it gives people a lot of help in what they're trying to do in using your application, and it decreases the amount of errors during the actual programming process. So you catch the errors earlier on, and that helps a lot. That's really why I use TypeScript so much, why I talk about it so much, why I said I was teaching TypeScript and not teaching JavaScript. It's a lot of what we're going to see is JavaScript. A lot of the code you're going to see is JavaScript, but whenever you see anything like types, whenever you see me define particular types or things of that nature, that is TypeScript. Anything that has to do with nailing down a type to a property or a variable of some kind, or anything else, any other piece of React that you're going to see here that I put a type into, that is TypeScript doing that work. So that's where, and there's some really interesting stuff you can do with TypeScript as well. That's why I said it's not just that, but that's more advanced features and things. And we might get into that. We probably will get into that because there probably will be some things. I'm going to go ahead and start the screen share here. I'm going to kill the overlay so we can see more. I'm going to start the screen share because what we're going to do is we've, like I said, image gallery is what we decided to go on. So that's what we're going to do. I am going to show you the entire process of what I do and how I do things. Basically, this is going to be a Vsoft component called image gallery, and I use Jira. I have to thank Jira. Jira has given me full access to the entirety of their software suite for free because I am an open source project. So don't charge, nothing like that, completely open source. That's what Vsoft Components is. So the stuff you see here in Jira is full-fledged Jira and all that. And, that's what I use. And basically, we're going to, if anyone wants to join, anyone wants to start contributing, let me know. We'll add you to the Jira, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. I've got Jira up here right now. I was starting with creating the task. I'll also show you the process here that we go through. So let's share. All right. So I'm creating a new task here. This is the Vsoft Jira. well, the Beehive soft Jira. The task summary, create an image gallery component, pretty basic. I was going through just some basic outlay here right before this started, and I said, well, let me jump over and get this thing started, and we'll finish this out together. So the image gallery will display multiple images, showing the current list of them in a thumbnail section below, and the currently selected image will be in the main part of the component. So that's pretty well done. I'm really not all that concerned with this. We can always come back and make some modifications. I'm going to set myself as the reporter. We might as well assign it to me because I'm going to be doing the work. I wouldn't say it's a high priority component. It's not really a change. It's just a component. I don't have any labels. I'm going to have to assign that a parent after the fact. Here, we'll do create another. And I'll create a parent for this, and then we'll be able to do that. So we'll say create another. And we'll call it, what would I say? It was image gallery. So we'll create an image gallery parent component. Create, pops another. This isn't a story now. This is going to be an epic. So now we're going to have an epic with the epic name, image gallery. All right. And that'd be any tasks related to the image gallery component. All right, because we may have secondary tasks. We probably will have secondary tasks. I'm saying that this is in, I've created a number of different components. This is Jira's definition of components, by the way, which is kind of a way to divide up where things belong. Image galleries media, so I put it into the media section. Really not much reason to put description. The summary says all we need to know. And so we will go ahead. Doesn't really need an assignee. Can stay that. Uncheck that. Create. Now we'll go into our backlog. Yeah. And what we need to do here is we need to find, go away. We need to find, looks like someone commented. Let's see what we got here. Maybe it wasn't a comment to the live comment. Okay. We need to find the guy we just created, which might be, here we are. Create the image gallery component. Here we'll go like this. Oh, we probably shouldn't go like this, actually. You won't see that. We'll have to do it here. And so we'll come down to here. We will look for the parent. Here. Okay, parent. This, and it's going to be 94. So there we go. It did the summary. Okay. The summary is what it uses. Hang on, we're going to go back into here. So we put it to the right thing, but I forgot this needs to be reversed. Basically. So now you see our issues here. You're going to see why we're going to do it here in a second, but let me change this to do the right way. Because once we pull it into Jira, you want to know what you're working on. It's going to be in the more fields. It's got to be, or the epic name is image gallery. There we go. Just say here, image gallery. All right. There's that. There's that. Now if you come to here, now it says image gallery, and that's what we want. All right. So away we go. Actually, one more thing here. Well, here. We'll showcase the drag and drop capabilities of Jira. We'll go ahead and we'll put it into, let's put it to the top here. Into ready for dev. We can go to our Kanban board. I use Kanban. For those of you who don't, let's do a really quick discussion of different agile agile methodologies. You know, there's agile development, there's Scrum, and there's Kanban. Scrum is a lot more for structured things where you have, you know, a development team that is dedicated to putting in a normal work week, and they have a certain amount of time they can dedicate to getting things done. Kanban is a little bit more loosey goosey. It still has the same basic concepts of agile, things of that nature. You still have story points and all of those kinds of things, um, but basically you don't have the structure. You don't have a particular two week sprints. You don't have sprints in Kanban and things of that nature. Basically, it's whatever you can get done within a period of time, and that really works better for ours, since it's an open source project, and since we don't, not everyone gets to work on everything every week. There isn't a particular amount of time that every person has said they will dedicate actual time. It's whenever they have time. So it's a lot better to use Kanban in that case, because that's a little bit more loosey goosey, and really Kanban now for us is more about the delivery of a version more than actual delivering something within a 2 week period or within a certain time period, which usually in Scrum is 2 weeks. So we will go ahead and we will try to find, we got headless components. Here's our image gallery. Now there's one more thing we need to do. One thing we didn't do when we did this. Let's see here. I don't think there's enough people who are actually here participating. I'm not sure how many there are. If we wanted to do like an official pointing session, and assign points to this. So I'm going to go ahead and just assign the points myself. If anyone wants to throw, I use the Fibonacci sequence. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. And technically, then you go 20, even though the next number in the Fibonacci sequence is 21. I don't know why they go 20 in that pointing system, but whatever. So if anyone wants to throw a number out there, throw a number out there. But this is going to be a large component. I would say we're probably between an 8 and a 13. I'd say we'd probably be better to go ahead and just give it a 13, give it the largest one, because we are going to have, like I said, 3 components the way I see it. So it's probably best to give it a bigger point number and things of that nature, because that's what we're going to be doing the work on for a little while here. I got a feeling it's going to take us a number of weeks, probably more than 2 months is my guess. So we'll go ahead and we'll say it's 13 points. So we'll give us 13 points. And there we are. So now we're going to go ahead and drag this over to in development. And there we go. We now have our create image gallery here out of backlog. That shouldn't be in backlog. Oh, it is. Okay. Oh, that's the backlog there. Never mind. Okay. And now this should be in development. There we go. One would think, well, here's an easier one. Boom. There we go. Now I can just see mine. So these are mine. That makes it easier to see. I don't have to go through. I don't have to scroll to the bottom all the time. And now we can see this is our image gallery component. So that gives us the beginnings. And the other reason I did this is part of the workflow that we do for our development process. That number right there, I needed that number because that number right there is going to be the name of my branch. You will see the reason why. Actually, I can show you the reason why right here. If you look here in this task, BSC 72, moving the date component to a headless architecture. If you look at the little icon right here, this will show you any potential commits. And as you can see, there's up to 6 commits here. This is how from GitHub to Jira that we link our commits. If you notice, I will name the actual branch this name, and I will also put this number before any comments before I check in. So any check-in comments will have BSC-93 before it, so that every single commit will be logged by Jira. So basically, the idea is as it moves through there, if people want to go through the review process and see the work I've done in the different commits, they can actually click into here. Let's see if this will actually show me. Boom, there we go. And you can actually take a look at the message that I used. You can even view this in GitHub. If you go to GitHub, I'm not sure if you can see, it's quite small, but there is actually a URL displayed at the very bottom of the page there, and it shows the commit number and all that stuff. Basically, if you went into there, you would see all the commits that were done in that particular in that particular part. Unfortunately, it also brings in merges as well. As you see, this is a merge, that's a merge from develop. So these are things that have happened in between the time of that actually running. So, but still, it's there for review if people want to see it when it's in review. That's the idea, at least. All right, so now we're going to move on. Let's go ahead and come back to here. I will stop sharing because, like I said, switching sharing for some reason doesn't always work. So we got to stop the share. I do have the BSoft components up, but it's sitting on the develop branch right now. So we will do a screen share of BSoft components. And here we are. All right. So as you can see up here, that's our branch that we're at. We're on the develop branch. I'm going to bring up my Git control here just to be safe. I always like to update. I'm pretty sure it's up to date. We will find out here, but all are up to date. It was up to date. So just always good to be sure before you're creating a new branch. Right click, new branch from develop. I always like to start with the name feature. This is a feature, so I have feature and I have bug fix. Those are the two. I haven't really had to do a hot fix yet. That would be a third if I ever use that. Is a hot fix that had to get out right away. So what did I say we're going to call it? BSC. I believe I said it was 93. Hang on here. BSC. Yeah, 93. Okay, so BSC dash 93, and then I'm going to give it the name image gallery. Boom, and there we go. Now, technically, we have a change. We should have a change in here already. We do. This is my last stream. I showed CSS animation stuff with Tailwind, and I'm leaving this in. So in my IDE, which is WebStorm, if when you create a new branch, the changes you have don't conflict with the changes of the branch you're creating your new branch from, it will just bring the changes along with you. And that's what we want, because this actually makes the bounce animation a little bit more solid. Without this there, for some reason, it would do this little moving thing. It wouldn't just bounce; it would bounce and like move to the right. It looks strange. So this one gives a more consistent bounce. So that's why we did that change in the last stream. Now, we said that this would be in a media section. So this is how BSoft components is. This is components common, or any common components. We've got things like the BSoft icon, the BSoft transition, the main label component, and we've got the template outlet component. You may see some of these. This one you probably will see used eventually here. Simply because we probably will put the concept of templating inside of this component at the end, but that's going to be later on. Let's go ahead and kill this over here. Form is where I've been focusing most of my work, because this is form inputs. A lot of what's in BSoft components right now is this. Buttons is the group button. Checkbox is date time. The date time's the big one, basically. I've been doing most of the work on. The inputs usually service the date time. You have the regular content editable and the formatted input that are used inside the date time, and then we got some radio buttons. We have a couple mobile components over here, the media query and the mobile overlay. I've showcased the mobile overlay before. We may try to make this mobile compatible. We probably should try to make this mobile compatible, but let's not worry about that yet. That might be a feature down the road. But that needs to be a concept in our minds. Some navigation ones, basically just components. I do have another side menu item task that's out there right now, but hasn't been worked on. And the overlay. So basically in the date time component, when you click and it has a little piece that comes up that's part of the selector, the overlay panel is the pop-up that basically contains other things. So we don't have what we're looking for. The new section we're going to create now is going from components is going to be media, because that's where our image gallery is going to live. So media, and then we'll create a new directory and we'll call it image gallery. And there we are. And then I do a naming convention inside of my, first of all, we're going to do a JSX file, a TypeScript JSX file. Now, this is something, well, it's not specific with React. JSX was created by Facebook. So It's usually associated with React, but you can use JSX in many other places. It is its own. I don't want to call it a frame or a language. It's not really a framework. It's kind of a way of working with markup within JavaScript. That's the best way to explain what JSX is, or what JSX is. And in this case, our extension won't be .jsx, it'll be .tsx because it's a TypeScript JSX file. So we'll start with this, and then I'll maybe explain a little more. So we're going to say image gallery, and then I say .component. Now, I use this as a naming convention. I use a dot naming convention, and you can see the example of it like right here, form generic dot interfaces. This only contains interfaces in it, and it's the generic form interfaces for all of the form components. I use that so the reason I do this is so that I can take a look at this pretty much straight up, and I can see what is in here. In this case, I didn't put the dot naming convention. I used just a tab naming convention, but that's because these are all common. But if you go inside of any of my components, you'll see almost immediately this naming convention, image gallery component. And that's because that's exactly what this is meant to be. This is an image gallery component. This is Git asking me if I want to add this new file to Git. Of course, I want to add it to Git. And so there we go. Now we've added to Git. As you see, now here we are. We've got our changes over there in Git. So this is the beginnings of our components. Let me see if anyone's got, TypeScript. Okay. Yeah, it did say it on the heading up there. Yes. I hope you were here for the definition of why TypeScript. If not, after the stream, go back and watch the first part of the stream. If you came in just now, that's my definition for why TypeScript and why we're using TypeScript. Here's the comment for anyone who wants to see it. And there we go. So, yes. So basically, we're going to now start working on the image gallery. We're probably not going to do a whole lot here. I do a different. I also do things slightly different as well. You'll notice in most of my components, I also have the concept of. I do like this mouse, but I don't like that I don't have the right slide on it anymore. Of props. So I don't define my props inside the actual component, and there's a reason for that. I'm using React Refresh as part of my ESLint settings. So my ESLint settings in React Refresh suggests and recommends that you put your props, you put basically your interfaces in a separate file away from your component. So component work in one file, props in another file. So what we will do here as well, since we're going to have props, is we will say image gallery.props. Once again, a naming convention I follow because it keeps things now, as you notice, this is strictly a TypeScript file because we aren't going to be doing any actual markup in it. That's the difference between TSX and just straight TS. So once again, yes, of course, we'll add it. And now we've got our props. So we may not be going too much in depth here today because we were just talking about the setup and everything else. I'm just trying to showcase what we're doing, maybe try to fill in more of the blanks about TypeScript and the beginnings of TypeScript, why I think we should use it in this component. We will, as we go along, we will see that basically TypeScript is going to give us a lot of type inference, of type safety, and things of that nature. When people use our components, since we have written this in TypeScript, I mean, nowadays it doesn't matter if you write a JavaScript library. If you write a JavaScript component library, even if you don't use TypeScript nowadays, you almost have to provide typings for it. TypeScript is so widely used out there that it kind of behooves you not to use it. It provides a lot of type safety and things of that nature. While I understand some of the things of JavaScript and allowing for things to be so dynamic and loosey-goosey, I mean, technically in JavaScript, here's a really good example. Let me showcase something you can do in JavaScript. In JavaScript, basically, we're gonna do let, because let is the new version of var. Basically, vars. If I type var, you get an error. But let is basically how var used to work. You can assign, you can unassign. basically we're going to say let test is equal to test, bam. Now, as you can, if you can see this, I'm hoping you can, my IDE actually goes ahead and gives the type. Since we're using TypeScript, it gives the type next to it. So you assign it a string. This is a string. Now, this is probably going to throw an error because this is TypeScript, but this is something you can do in JavaScript. I could then turn around and say test is equal to 3, and there you go. It'll throw an error here because it's TypeScript. But see, it'll say, oh, you can't assign a number. You can't assign a number to a string. TypeScript doesn't let us do this. But in JavaScript, we could. If we were just doing JavaScript, we could assign it to a number. We could then turn around and assign it to a Boolean later on. We could then turn around and assign it to a date later on. We could throw an object into it. And I've seen that done before too, by the way. I've seen some really bad code where, you know, it's like I remember one that had a function and it had a parameter in it, and the parameter sometimes would end up getting, it was either a string or a number, and sometimes we get an object, and sometimes we get this, and sometimes we get that. And so we had to write this code inside of this function to check all of these different if then else's at the very beginning to figure out what we were going to even do. So it really behooves you not to use TypeScript. You know, I don't see why you would want to do that. There are advantages, I guess, to potentially doing that. No, do not do that. There are advantages, I guess, potentially to allowing that to happen, but I can't really see a reason why, if you wanted to store a different value, you just wouldn't create a different variable to store it in. So yeah, that's kind of where I hang with that. That's why I think TypeScript's important, because it kind of provides a little bit more structure around JavaScript, especially when you're dealing with data, when you're writing, and most, let's be honest, most of our applications out there deal with data. There's very few applications that don't deal with data. Even in my 3D interactive stuff, I still use TypeScript. Why? Because I like to be able to know what I should be passing to here. And like I said, since TypeScript is so prevalent out there, even these 3D interactive frameworks out there have types, have their own types. Some of them are probably built in TypeScript. A lot of people are building the new frameworks using TypeScript just so they don't have to sit there and keep a separate set of types handy. You just define your types as part of the development process, and they just get exported. Let's go through that. That's the one thing I was trying to remember. There was one more thing I was trying to come up with. Basically, this project has been created. It's been created as a TypeScript project from the very beginning. It was created as a TypeScript library. I redid it as I'm using Bun. That's my runner. Is Bun. Bun is one of the node replacement applications out there. There's of course Node. There's Dino, which people have brought up to me before, and there's Bun. I chose Bun. I like Bun. It's pretty small. It's very fast. Very, very fast. It starts up, and you don't sit there and say, Yarn does the same thing too. You don't sit there and say, npm install, and then walk away and take a coffee break and come back 5 minutes later, and it's still just churning through it. With Bun, installs are a lot faster. Especially if you've already installed it. So each time you install it, Bun creates, here, I'll go and show you. Bun creates a file right here. Here's the file. I'm not going to open it because it's a binary file, but this is Bun's lock file. So basically what happens is, much like a lock file works in all the other runners, the point of the lock file is to keep that particular version, but it keeps that particular version of that particular thing in there. And I believe, if I'm right, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please Bun respond and tell me exactly how it works. But I believe it keeps an actual binary hold of that library in there. Now I could be wrong on that, but the way this thing installs is so fast. It's unreal how fast you can just do Bun install and bam, it just installs everything very quickly. Really great. And the next thing I was going to talk about is the TypeScript config. So we need to set up TypeScript config and do things like this. Now I've gone this, and this is the settings that I'm using for TypeScript. Basically, ESNext is just saying take the next version. So we're targeting pretty much the latest version of the ECMA. There you go. The ECMA standard. That's what ES stands for. ECMA standard. So that's pretty much what we're targeting is the latest ECMA standard. I want to keep BSoft components up with the latest stuff that's out there. It will fall back and do what it needs to, of course. These are some of the settings that came with Bun, like the modular resolution being bundler. I can't remember what modular resolution is. How it looks up a file, basically. How it looks up a file given a module specifier. So that's a definition of how it looks up a file. No emit, I think it has to do with not emitting JavaScript. Disable emitting file from a compilator. Oh, good gosh. Yeah, so basically you can run through this. This is none of this is closed source. All of this is open source. You can look in my profile. The pinned post my profile. There's a post underneath there that has all the links in it. One of them is the link to the BSoft components, or the BSoft collective organization. From there, BSoft components is the pinned project. It's the main project we're working on, so I pinned it to the top. The kind of JSX we're using, React JSX. So basically that's saying, basically, yes, use JSX. Allow JS true. So we do allow JavaScript to be used within here. Strict mode is usually pretty good. It puts some kind of strict type checkings and things of that nature. Basically, I believe this is what will tell you if you have things that are assigned and you don't give it a type, it will warn you like that you have an implicit any type and things of that nature. I think actually there is one specific for that too. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, but yeah, basically, then we set the includes for TypeScript. This is basically what files need to be processed by TypeScript. I had to put the storybook files in there so we could do storybook files. But these then tell me when we're actually building the types what to exclude. So basically, don't bring any of these into the types that we're building. So when we build, we end up with two files here. We end up with the index.ts. This is basically all of the actual components and types that get exported, and we also have a CSS that gets built as well. This is our CSS that comes out and gets built as well. Actually, we build a custom CSS. So all of our CSS stuff, if you look, let me see if I can find it here. I may not have built in this for a while. No, I haven't. I haven't actually locally built since I had my new machine, or else you'd see a public file up here. But basically, that's it. That's the run through on TypeScript, on what we're doing, on where we're going to be going with this. So really quickly, we'll go back to where we were. We're going to be having an image gallery component. We're probably going to start. I need to come up with the idea, since I was waiting to see what the final solution was. I needed to know what we're going to do. Next time I'll probably do some pre-work and come up with the props that we're going to do. I might have the props already pre-done, or we might do them ourselves. I think maybe in the interest of brevity, I might go ahead and create at least the basic props to start off with, and then we'll start working on the gallery component next time. So that's the hope, is to get people to come along, see things, learn things. Hopefully today you learned what TypeScript is, not just what it is, but why we use it, why it's as popular as it is. Like I said, I would definitely use it if you're going to be writing a JavaScript application that deals with data, but I find it useful in just about all areas. I always use it because it just makes it easier to know what I'm working with, to know what functions are available, to know what properties are available, to know what the types of those, the return types of those functions, the actual types of those properties are. It's good to know and not have to sit there and check on this, check on that, do this, do that, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of a pain to sit there and having to check on all of these things and all that kind of stuff. I'm hoping that people didn't make comments that didn't come through. I had that happen once where I saw a first comment and then didn't see any more. If so, you can always just actually that's the last thing I want to end with. So I would like to see these things get a little bit out there more. So anyone who enjoyed watching today and is planning on coming, if you could like, comment, and if you're really, really in a good mood to do so, repost so others can see it. I've made mention of my live streams to people and things that I've done where people have talked about things. And I said, oh, I did a live stream on that. And people are like, you did a live stream on that? And I had to repost it and say, yeah, here it is. So it'd be good if it got out there. It'd be good if people started to see this, you'd really help me out by liking and commenting. If you have any questions, unless you're really embarrassed to ask them in public, I would say, here, I'm going to stop screen sharing since we're done with that. I would say I would rather see you go ahead and comment to this post. So basically on X, comment on the post for this broadcast here and ask the question there. Get the conversation going there. I can answer questions. Anything I didn't answer today. I don't always remember everything that I'm going to talk about. It just kind of comes out, and whatever comes out comes out. So if you've got questions, I would prefer that you ask them as a reply to this post so that I can actually answer in kind. And please, like, reply, repost if possible. I'd like to get this out there. I'd like people to start to see this, because especially this one is really going to be some really good learning. Yes, HTML and CSS led us up to here. Any of you that have been watching the streams, hopefully have learned a lot from there. And now we're going to be getting into more meat, more in depth stuff, creating an actual component. And this component, like I said before, will go into BSoft components. It will be a publicly available component at the end of this, and we will actually deploy this, and it will be something that we've all participated in, hopefully. So hopefully next time I'd like to see more comments, more participation, more questions. We will be doing more, so that will be good. This was really more of a introduction to what we're going to be doing, what the component is, what the votes, how the votes went, and all that, discussing TypeScript, blah, blah, blah. So we've done all of that. So what I'd like to see is next time, come with your questions, be ready to ask questions when I'm doing stuff. I want the questions because that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to teach, I'm trying to explain, I'm trying to impart. So I can't know what your question is if you don't ask it. So I hope to see you all next time, and it will be same time next week. It'll be Thursday at my 2 p.m. Which, like I said, it's harder and harder as daylight savings comes in and this and that to say what times are what. So I've started saying check your local times and listings. So GMT plus 10. So I'm GMT plus 10. There's plenty of applications out there. You can put that in and find out what time 2 p.m. GMT plus 10 is for you. Find out, and I'd love to